Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. So this is a continuation of the last video for Apple Pie. We completed the whole interface design and plus a bit of connections with the code file. We'll continue with part 3. I think we finished part 1 and 2 and we still have 3 parts left, part 3, 4 and 5. So the last in the last video we were able to finish this. We were able to put the picture of the tree, we were able to lay out all the buttons and the labels, and if you click on any button so far it just disables the button, which means you cannot click on it again. We will have to now code the remaining parts, which means that once I click on a letter, it should check whether the letter is part of the word that we're trying to guess. If so, then you show that letter here in the label. Otherwise, you just remove an apple from the tree here. Okay. So for now, the first thing we need to do is we need to change the letter button pressed action. So this is the action that runs when you click any of these buttons. What it does is it takes the button and it changes the enabled property to false, which means it becomes disabled where the user cannot click on it anymore. After this, what we're going to do is we will take the letter that the user pressed. So for example, if it was D, I want to get that letter D. Okay, you can do that by creating a constant called letter string and then make it equal to sender dot. Now in your lab file, the code for this is sender dot title for dot normal. Now this will only work if you go to the button here and you change the style of the button to default. If the style of the button is default, then the sender dot title code will work. Otherwise it will not work. But the problem here is we have 26 buttons and it is not ideal to change all of them. If you want to change all of them, that's fine, no problem. But if you don't want to change all of them, like if you don't want to change the style of all of those buttons to default, then what you can use instead is dot title label dot text. It gets you the same content. For example, if the button clicked was Q, this will give you Q. But the only thing here is it does not matter if the style of the button is plain or default. Okay, so that's the only difference here. You will write sender dot title label dot text, which will give you the text of the title, and we will also say if this for some reason is nil, keep it as an empty string, because this is optional, right? So that means there can be a case where this is nil, which means it doesn't have any value. If that is the case, please keep it as an empty string. Okay, once you have this, then you can say let letter is equal to character letter string dot lowercase. What this does is it changes the data type of the letter string to character. So first of all, what we're doing is we're changing the case of the letter string. Here it's capital Q. We're changing it to lowercase q, and then we're changing its data type to character because it is easier to compare it with a character with lowercase than it is to compare with a string. Okay, you can choose to do it with string as well, no problem, but since I'm following the lab, this is what is mentioned in the lab, therefore I'm showing it to you here. Now once that is done, we need to go back to the game struct. So I will go to the game struct here, and we need to keep track of all the letters that the user has guessed. So far in this game round, what are the letters that the user has guessed? So for that, I will create a variable guessed letters, which is a character array. Okay. Then after that, you have to create a method func player guessed the letter, which is a character. So this method, basically what it's going to do is it will take the letter, so the letter that the user clicked on, it will take the letter and it will just make sure if this letter is present in the word, then it's fine. Otherwise, it will update the incorrect moves that are remaining. So how many more moves the user has, it will update that. So for that, what you can say is, first of all, the letter, for example, this is the first time the user is playing the game, they click on W. So you send W to this method and you make sure it's added to the guessed letters, because that's the letter that the user guessed. The next step would be to check is W present in the word that the user is trying to guess. If yes, perfect. If not, decrement this. That's the whole idea of this method. Now, because we're actually updating all of these properties or attributes of the struct game, we need to add the keyword mutating to the function, because anytime in a function that belongs to a struct, you try to update any of its attributes, you have to use the mutating keyword. Okay, if you don't use it, it will give you an error. It will tell you to use it. So the first step is add the letter to the guessed letters using this. So this will append basically the letter that the user just clicked on to the guessed letters. And then after that, you will check if the word dot contains letter. If the word does not contain, that is what we need to check. If the word, or it's because we're not doing anything if the letter that the user guessed, if it exists in this word, we're not doing anything, but we're only doing something when it does not exist. So in that case, if the word does not have this letter, please decrement the incorrect moves remaining by 1. Okay, so the same process, for example, the user pressed on the letter E, it will call this method, it will add the letter to the guessed letters, it will check if this letter does not belong to the word, then please decrement the remaining moves. Now we've written this method, but we need to also use it, right? So you can use this method basically. Okay, before that, there's an error because we added a new what is it called, property attribute. We added a new attribute to the game structure, right? So the constructor, or basically the initializer, is updated. So we need to send this also in the initializer. So we have word, we have incorrect moves remaining, and the last one should be guessed letters, which is an empty string, because in the beginning when you start a round, the user has not guessed anything, so you keep it as an empty array. Okay, after that, when the user clicks on the button, the button that, for example, like I said, for example, they press on the letter E, you disable that button, you take its text, you change it to character, and then you need to call current game dot player guessed letter. So the letter that is basically the title will be sent to this current game player guessed. There it will check if it belongs to the word, good. If not, then decrease the remaining moves. Now after this, I think, okay, now let's see, we need to test it. Let's see if it's working the way it should. So for example, for the first word, I think Y is not there. Okay, it's not doing anything so far, but I think it should. Okay, my bad. See, we're changing the we're making changes to the moves left, but we also need to update the UI to show those changes, because if we don't update the UI, the tree image will not change, and if there's a new score that needs to be shown, that will also not change. So now it should change the number of apples. For example, if I press on Y, it doesn't belong to the word, therefore one apple is gone. O does not belong to the word, so it's gone. B belongs to the word, therefore no apple was removed. Okay, so similarly A is there, but Q is not there. So if you keep doing this, it will, yeah, we need to handle this as well. But for now, at least it's working. It's making sure if the letter that the user pressed, if it's there, perfect. If not, reduce an apple from the tree. Now, I think that is part 3. Moving to part 4. In part 4, you should also show the text here. For now, if you notice, we're not showing the actual word. In part 4, we have to show the actual word here, bit by bit, as the user keeps guessing them. So the first thing we need to do is we will go back to game, and we will add here, I think it is here, yes, we need to add a property called var formatted word, which is basically a string, and it is a computed property. Computed property means every time you call this, some code will run to generate its value. That is basically a computed property. So every time you call formatted word, what it's going to do is it will generate a text that you can display here. So I can say var guessed word is equal to empty string for letter in word, which is the word that they're trying to guess, which is this one. For every letter in word, check if the guessed letters contains this letter. If it does, then add the letter to the word, the guessed word. Otherwise, keep it as underscore. So what's going to happen? It will go through all the actual, and basically you also need to return guessed word. Okay, what it's doing is it's creating a word, guessed word, which is basically by iterating over the word property. What this means is you go through the word that you're trying to guess. So for example, if the word is happy, okay, you will go through each letter of happy, H-A-P-P-Y, and you will check if the guessed letters has any of these letters from the word. If it does, then you will add that letter to the string. So for example, the user guessed H, so you will add H, but the user didn't guess A, so you, instead of adding A, you will add underscore, which means it's hidden. So this is for the hidden words, hidden letters, and this is for the letters that the user has already guessed. Finally, once you're done with the word, you just return the guessed word. Okay, and now this you need to show in the update UI. In the update UI, you will say correct word label dot text should be equal to current game dot formatted word. Okay, now if we run, for example, A is there. So see, A is still shown. B is there. B is shown, but everything else is underscore. E is there. W is not there, so the apple goes away. And then I think R is there, U is there, C is there, N is there. So I've guessed the whole word. So as I keep guessing, it will show me the letter here. If it's not there, then it will remove the apple from the tree. If it is not still guessed, then it is represented by underscore. Okay, so after that, what we need to do is, for now, you can see that, for example, let's run it again. If I just look at this, it's one straight line. I do not know how many letters are supposed to be there in this word. One thing I can do to fix this is I can show a space between each of the characters. Okay, like I can put a space between each of the characters. That I will do in Update UI. So in Update UI, before I display the correct word in the label, what I can do is I can create a letters array, which is of type string. Okay, and for every letter in the current game dot formatted word, what I can do is I can say letters dot append, change it to letter. Okay, string of letters. So for every word that is there in, for every letter that is there in the word, in the formatted word, just put it to a string array. Just put it to a string array, and then finally what you can do is you can say let word with spacing is equal to letters dot joined with separator, which is a space. So in order to use this, we need to create a string array, otherwise this is not available. So in order to use the joined, which basically what it does is it takes every letter in the array, every index or every element in the array, and after every element it just adds a space. Okay, and this works with string arrays only. So yeah, so with this you will have the word with spacing, and then all you have to do is change this to word with spacing, and then run this and see if it works. See, there's a space now between all of these letters. So for example, B is here, but I still know that there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. I know that there are a total of 9 characters. I've guessed one of them, so I need to guess 8 more. And then E here, R here, A here, C here, and U. Okay, so now I've guessed the word, but it's still stuck. It's still disabled with some of the letters, and it's still on the same word. It is still dropping the apples, which is not how it should behave. This is now handled in the 5th part, which is the last part of the app. In this part, we will see if the user guessed the whole word correctly, then we increment their win, or we increment their loss if they do not win. So for that, what you're going to do is you will create a function called let's create it here, function which is called update game state. So win or loss is basically the state of the game, right? So I'll create this method here, and then in this method I'm going to say if the current game dot incorrect remaining moves is equal to 0, then you lose. So as soon as your incorrect moves are 0, that means you run out of moves, your loss should be increased. So total losses +1. If the current, so if it is not 0, then it will go to else, right? So in the next part we will check if current game dot word is the same as current game dot formatted word. If it is the same, that means the player has guessed the word, and so you give them 1 point for winning. Otherwise, if none of this happened, then please go and update the UI. Okay, now in letter button pressed, we have to change this to update game state. So every time the user presses on the button, it will go and check, does the user have any more moves? If not, then it's a loss. If the user has guessed the word correctly as the one that's formatted, then it's a win. Otherwise, please go and update the UI of the game. Okay, I think, yeah, okay. Now, every time the variable total win is set. So for example, if I increment the win, that means the round is over, right? So did set is basically an observer that checks, that runs after you change the value of the variable. So for example, initially the value is 0. When we change its value to some other value, for example, did set will run, and here I want it to start a new round. And the same for here, new round. So basically every time you update the loss, meaning if I'm updating the loss, that means the round is over, so I need to start another round. So as soon as you've updated, please call the method new round, which will update or add a new round. So if we run this, it will work something like this. So if I just pick all the variables, see, it's moved to the next one, it's moved to the next round. The win here is 1. The tree is back to, I think, I don't know, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, yeah, 7 apples, but the buttons are still disabled. To fix that, what we're going to do is we will here make sure not here, sorry, in the new round we will make sure that we wait. Okay, we need to enable and disable the buttons in the new round. We're disabling them in, no, I think that is correct. Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, so in the new round, what we're going to, because once you finish all the rounds, for example, if I guess everything, it doesn't reset back, right? It doesn't enable the buttons back, and it doesn't reset everything back. What I want it to do is, if in the new round you have to check if the list of words, if it is not empty, then you're going to get a word from the list, because there can be a case that you reach the end of the list. What happens then? If you try to run remove first, then it will crash. So to avoid that, we have this statement here to check. If it's not empty, only then create the new game, and then we will do something in the else part as well. Now, to enable all the buttons, if we have to enable them, we have to enable them individually, right? So in order to avoid that work, what you can do is you can create a method called enable letter buttons okay, and it takes a boolean called enable. Okay, this is just to avoid writing enable when you're calling the method. And then for every button in letter buttons, you will enable it. So button dot is enabled is equal to enable. So if enable is true, it will enable all the buttons that are present in letter buttons. And if you remember, letter buttons are all the buttons connected, if you can see here. So if the letter buttons are, if the button is in letter buttons, you will you will set the value for is enabled same as whatever is passed here. So if you start a round and there is a word, initially you have to enable all the buttons, because from the previous round there will be some buttons that are disabled. If it is not, then if it's the end of the game and you've run out of all the words, then you will disable all the buttons. Okay, and I think that is it. So if you run this here, so Buccaneer, okay, see, it enabled all the buttons again. I think this was Swift, this was Glorious, I don't know, what is this? Bug, I don't know what this is. Let's just play. Let me see. Oh, program. Okay, see, this is a problem, but we can ignore that. But at the end, when you've run out of all the words in the array, it just ends. The game just ends. So I think that is it. I don't think they want you to do anything else other than that. There are some challenges there as well. That's up to you to do them. But other than that, I think the game works. So even if you lose, for example, if I get all the letters wrong, yeah, it updates the loss as well. So I think that's it for this lab. Try to do it multiple times so you can get used to how the code works and interacts with the UI basically. And I think, yeah, that's it. Have a wonderful day and see you in the next one.